Welcome to Raiders of the Lost Podcast, the ultimate film and TV podcast.
We are your hosts, James
and Anthony.
This episode will be on Predator, released in 1987.
Hello, movie friends. Welcome back to the show. We're so glad to be here talking about one of the greatest action movies of all time, Predator, a film that we grew up watching as kids. Our older brothers loved it, so we loved it, and we're just glad to be talking about a great classic action movie like this.
We adore this movie. It's incredible and still holds up to this day. It's just a classic sci-fi action horror film. It is basically the most dangerous game with biceps and an alien. We love it. Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime. The star, the biggest action hero probably of all time besides Tom Cruise as well. This was released in 1987, directed by John McTiernan, written by Jim Thomas and John Thomas. It stars Schwarzenegger as well as Carl Weathers and Kevin Peter Hall as the Predator.
Can we just talk about how impressive it is that John McTiernan directed both Die Hard and Predator, a couple of just the greatest action movies ever made?
He's up there as one of the best action directors of all time.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And what's so great about both those movies, we were talking about this when we were watching it, just to recap it for the 15th time the other night, that, these old action movies, they were so patient and they open up with no action at all, really, besides just setting up a story, setting up characters. They take their time, which is something that I really miss in a lot of action movies. You know, modern action movies, they start off boom, 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 so fast, and you can't take a chance to breathe. But that's what I love about Predator, is just like this. It's a great combination back and forth between sort of eerie quietness and suspense, and then bombastic action and music.
Yeah, it has a great build, just like Die Hard, where you're just learning about the characters and also the mystery that's unfolding. And McTiernan did a great job with the slow reveals of both the aftermath of what the Predator has been doing to people. First, you get the skinned bodies, and then the guts, and then in these slow reveals of what this thing is capable of. And then we slowly get quick shots of it. First with the invisibility cloak, and then
invisibility cloak, like Harry Potter.
That's what I'm calling it. That's what I'm calling it.
The cloaking system.
And then we finally get the full reveal of the Predator when after Arnie's in the water and the Predator comes out of the water. That's the first full.
No. There's a reveal.
Yeah,
before
but it's a quick one. It's a quick shot. But this is like watching the Predator for a couple of minutes, interacting with the environment. We can get a really great look at its entire suit. But before that, there's a great close-up of its basically Anton Chigurh repairing its leg, like in No Country for Old Men, and we get the close-ups of its hands and the wounds and its like biomechanical stuff. It's just really terrific how McTiernan slowly rolled out the alien.
Can you guess how many minutes it takes for that first reveal when his invisibility cloaking system is damaged from his injuries from the gunfire in the jungle? And then he's repairing himself. Guess how many minutes that is?
Minutes into the movie?
Yeah.
I'm going to say 45 minutes.
53 minutes into the movie, we finally get a glimpse at the Predator without his cloaking system, which is what's so great about this. It's like Jaws. You just take your time. There's no need to show everything right away, which a lot of action movies make that mistake. Now, this film follows an experienced soldier and his skilled rescue team are hired by the U.S. government and CIA to secretly rescue a group of politicians who are held hostage by guerrillas in Guatemala. But when the team and a CIA agent land in Central America, something is gravely wrong. After finding a string of dead bodies, the crew discovers they are being hunted by a brutal creature with otherworldly strength, weaponry, and the ability to disappear into its surroundings. On a low budget, this was very successful. $15 million budget, $98 million box office, and a spawn of sequels, video games, and just one of the greatest movie monsters of all time with the Predator.
And that box office obviously doesn't sound very impressive, and it's a good box office. It's not like amazing, but this movie became a highly rented, highly bought DVD and VHS for decades, and there's a reason why Fox has been making so many Predator movies and blending it with this Alien franchise and just doing so much with the property because it is so beloved, and it clearly is one of their most successful properties that Fox owns. Because yes, 200, like if you inflate $95 million, it's about $200 million today. But you got to factor in like they sold so many VHSs and DVDs as well as merch and posters of this movie.
And it's still loved and it's iconic. Now, before we continue, the best way to support Raiders of the Lost podcast, besides using our coupon codes, is to become a patron at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost podcast. You get awesome perks like personalized videos, podcast shouts on the show. Every patron every week has access to a weekly bonus episode we only post on Patreon. Our $10, $25, and $100 tier patrons have access to our Discord where we chat with you every day, do our watch parties as well. $25 and $100 tier patrons get their own custom episode. You pick the topic, we do it for you, and $100 tier patrons are the chosen ones. They are executive producers on the main episodes of the show. You can hear your name at the end of every main episode, as well as you get a private screening, and 3 months of that, you get to be a guest segment on the show. We also launched our podcast masterclass online course last year, so for anyone who wants to start a podcast or improve their current podcast, our 22 chapter 46 video lesson course give you all the secrets behind the scenes of our show. The link is podcastmasterclass.teachable.com, or just go to our website, raidersoftheLostPodcast.com. It's right there on the homepage. Be sure to follow, subscribe, hit the notification bells, leave the 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, and you can also do that on Spotify. We really appreciate it so much. Now let's get back into our epic episode of Predator.
Something that I love that's been happening with a lot of classic movies is they've been becoming memes in modern culture, and like young audiences who haven't seen a lot of these older films, they'll recognize the memes. Like I was talking with someone about American Psycho the other day and how they just watched it for the first time, but they have been seeing like obviously all the Patrick Bateman memes on both Instagram and TikTok. Like that's one of the most popular video memes there is for movies is Patrick Bateman. And then when they finally watch the movie, they're like, oh, I get all the memes now. They make sense to me now. And so obviously in this movie, it has another famous meme of modern culture. It's when Dutch and Dylan are basically doing their upright arm wrestling. And the great meme of that, first there's a video GIF meme of them embracing, and then there's the meme of it's a shot of both arms, and then there's the three text, a text on one bicep, a text on another bicep, and then a text when the hands are joined. That's become an extremely popular meme, and maybe a lot of younger people haven't even seen where this meme originates from this iconic scene. It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and for most of my life, we just yelled, Dylan.
You son of a bitch.
You son of a... Whenever I meet someone named Dylan, I automatically think, Dylan.
It's iconic, and this whole movie is iconic, and it's from an era that is pretty much past, and these kinds of movies aren't for everybody. They're not... Everyone likes to tune into them. You know, they're when studios would just have crazy action movies with a bunch of hyper-masculine dudes with enormous arms and biceps and give them even bigger guns. And these movies, like I said, they're not for everybody. They're not made for everybody. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But you know what? They are so enjoyable.
Yeah.
And The Predator still holds up so well, like many of them do. And I think like a lot of generic action movies from the 80s and 90s, not that this is a generic one, they hold up so much better than modern day generic action movies because there's a more enjoyable.
It has a rewatch value.
But The Predator is actually really, really well-made movie. McTiernan is such an accomplished director and very skilled. And I mean, the first 5 minutes of this movie, there's no dialogue. We just have the great music from Alan Silvestri, who came up with such brilliant themes for The Predator because it's so bombastic. It's the jungle aesthetic. It's also like the sound of like a predator hunting its prey, and it keeps you in suspensefully. It's kind of it's as important to the movie as something like John Williams scores in Star Wars.
What's really cool about the theme is it's one of the most legendary action themes, but it's like made with a piano. Yeah, that's made with a piano. It's amazing. It's really terrific how he did that. But I love the opening because we just see, these are special ops soldiers. They're like the best of the best. They're just big, hyper masculine dudes, and they're here to get the job done. And I like the intro. We don't need to open with an action scene. I think a lot of films nowadays, action films, they open with an action scene. I think Fallout really embraced the former action trope of Mission Impossible Fallout, not starting with an action scene, but starting with that great first the deal and then the hospital scene where
Don't forget the dream.
And the dream where they trick the villain.
Oh, you mean the first Mission Impossible?
No. Mission Impossible Fallout, where they trick the guy into revealing the code. There's no action in that in the first 15 minutes of that movie, but it's one of the best action movies ever. You don't need to have a huge high octane thing to start the film out. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. But I really like just enjoying us learning who the characters are through their dialogue and through their action. And we learn throughout the course of the film who each of these members of the team are, what makes them different, and each of their personalities. And all the performers do a terrific job This movie, I think it's really underrated for the amount of diversity in this film. There's an eclectic cast of people from all different backgrounds and ethnicities, so I think they did a fabulous job of being inclusive back in the 80s.
Exactly. In terms of dialogue, it's very minimal. Like, obviously, it opens up with barely any dialogue, just music, and then we get into the backstory of what's going on between Dutch and his buddy
Dylan.
I keep brain farting on his name.
Pushing too many pencils.
There's hardly any dialogue for the rest of the film, except for when it's needed. There's not like unnecessary dialogue, and the stillness of the jungle and the environment and the quietness is just as important as the dialogue in this film. That's why it makes it so suspenseful, so thrilling, and it's why it makes the Predator such a large threat for these characters.
So the biggest dialogue scene is when the general's informing them of the background of the mission and what they need, and it's just him, Dylan, and the general, and that's 5 minutes of heavy dialogue. That's it. You're right. For the rest of the film, it's basically all action and reaction, and there's very little dialogue. But in terms of dialogue, this is some of the Arnold's most iconic lines and most memorable lines, from "Get to the chopper" and "Dylan." There's just so many quotable ones in this film. And what I really love about this movie is because we grew up, like I said, with a lot of Arnold's action movies, Stallone's action movies, Carl Weathers as well with the Rockies. These actors, they were our superheroes when we were younger. Yes, we watched the Batman movies when we were kids. We had those on VHS, but we watched a lot of Arnold movies and we watched a lot of Stallone movies. And for us, that was our MCU. You know, those were the larger than life, super powerful characters who were the heroic figures of filmmaking in big budget action movies. And it's interesting how it's transitioned into the superheroes are more popular than the actual actors, because back then in the 80s and 90s, Schwarzenegger, he's one of the most successful actors of all time, and he was, I think, the first actor to be able to pull in $20 million contracts with his films. People would go see his movies because it was an Arnold movie, and all of his movies, most of them are original properties, original scripts. A couple of them are adapted from sci-fi novels like Total Recall, but I mean, this is an original story. Commando's an original story. A lot of his great films were just like, they're not franchises. They don't already have built-in audience. The same with Stallone. Stallone wrote a lot of his films, but they were highly successful. And I love that aspect of people went to see the actor. People went to go see the Stallone movie. People went to go see the Arnold movie. Now people go to see the Spider-Man movie. It's interesting how the star powers transition from the actor over to the actual character the actor is playing. Because if you look at a lot of the comic book character actors, their movies outside of the comic book world, not streaming, because I don't like to count streaming numbers because it's hard to tell if a movie is successful based on 20 million streams, but how long were they streaming the movie for? Based on box office, you can really see their movies kind of underperform when they're not in the suit. So I like this aspect of Hollywood stardom. It's kind of dead now.
And it's Arnold. He's in his prime. He's so iconic. He's just sweating and just wearing a sleeveless vest the whole time.
The wardrobe makes no sense.
Holding an enormous gun with a grenade launcher, and these weapons are massive. And Arnold's actually the one who came up with the idea of it being a group of commandos. When he was originally approached, the original script for Predator was just basically going to be his character versus the Predator. And he came up with a more interesting idea because he's actually, even though people think of Arnold as just like, oh, I'm a big muscled guy, I'm probably a
very
meathead.
Smart guy.
He's intelligent, and he was governor. Obviously, he was elected because he was the Terminator. But he's still a smart guy, and he knows how to tell a story. He's actually more involved with stories and screenplays and movies than you would think. And again, he came up with the Commando idea because he thought it'd be a better story to tell for the audience to watch. It's kind of like Tom Cruise is always heavily involved with the stories and the characters of the movies that he's in as well. So Arnold surprisingly made such a great decision for this film to turn into an ensemble cast, which works so much better, because if it was just one guy versus the Predator, it would have been a little more boring, because that's obviously what's so great about the third act of the movie, the climax, the big battle between Arnold and Predator. It's just mano a mano, but it was so much more effective to save that for the third act of the film, open the first two acts up with a great story, great ensemble cast, all these characters that are so memorable. That's what I love about this movie. And a lot of old action movies is there's 7, 8 main characters in this movie. They're all memorable. They're all unique, whether it's Mac with his quiet whispering one-liners who's shaving his face at the same time, or Blaine with his crude offensive one-liners that did not hold up well, obviously, today, but still Jesse Ventura was just like the ultra macho guy that you need in that role,
chewing
whether
tobacco,
you like him or not. And then we have Sancho is a great, Poncho is a great character as well. And Shane Black, who made the sequel, The Predator, and writer, he wrote Iron Man 3 and Kiss Kiss Bang
Last
Bang,
Action
director.
Hero.
So he's a great director, writer as well. The Nice Guys. He's actually in this movie as well. He's the guy with the glasses. And so great cast. You remember every single one of them. Billy, the indigenous American one, who's the hunter, the tracker. Great one-liners as well and very spiritual. So they're all unique and different. You remember each of these characters. I've always remembered them. I know all their lines. I know all their characteristics and habits. It's great.
And having the ensemble, and especially having this group of commandos, and it's told to us a couple of times, like, they're the best. Dylan's like, this is why you're here, because no one else could pull this job off. And they proved that when they take out that camp of rebels without getting a scratch on them, except for Jesse Ventura gets shot in the bicep. You're bleeding. I don't got time to bleed. But these are the best soldiers that exist, and especially this team when they work as a team. And that's what makes the Predator so effective, as opposed to it just being Arnie versus the Predator for the whole time. Because the movie becomes very special when it's Arnie versus the Predator, the third act of the film. It really sets it apart and makes it legendary. But showing how incredible of a killer the Predator is by taking out this team of the greatest soldiers that the country has to offer, that shows how formidable of a foe the Predator is. So then when it's Arnie versus him, it's like, damn, how is he going to get out of this alive?
I always think that Dutch is going to die in the third act of the film.
It's a
I'm
great
always
fight.
like watching it, even though I've seen it at least 20 times, this movie, throughout my entire life. Every time it's him versus Predator, I'm like, oh my God, is Dutch going to make it out alive?
Yeah, especially because what I really love about the final confrontation is like, and we'll get into it more in a bit, or we can just get into it now, but when Dutch proves himself to be like a great fighter and, probably the hardest human being that the Predator has ever had to fight or hunt before. I mean, who knows how often the Predators have been coming back to Earth and
since
before
ancient times.
Yeah, because we're actually doing this episode in celebration of Prey, the new Predator film, which we haven't seen yet, but we have high hopes for. It looks like a great trailer and a really terrific concept for doing something new with the franchise. Hopefully it rejuvenates some life into the franchise. But I love in the final confrontation, the Predator incapacitates Arnold and basically shows how powerful he is, lifts him up like 2 feet in the air with one arm. We just see just how strong this thing is. And then it drops Arnold down. And then what the Predator does is, rather than just straight killing him, because he could, the Predator instead takes his mask off and reveals himself to Dutch. And I think it was a really great moment. It might be my favorite moment of the film because, first of all, obviously the reveal of the Predator's face, which is a terrific design, horrifying, so memorable, and one of the greatest movie monsters of all time. But in that moment, the Predator is showing his respect for Dutch, because Dutch has proven himself to be a great hunter himself and defender. And so this is probably the only human that the Predator has revealed its face to, because it's like, you know what? You deserve to fight me mano a mano. None of my guns. I'm going to take off my blaster. I'm just going to go fist to fist with you, or claw to fist with you, because you deserved a warrior's death, and to really fight me in my bare bones, stripped down. So I really like that moment of the fight.
Love that fight, and we'll get into that later on. But how about we do a little background on the Predator, the species, the alien in general?
Yeah.
I got a bunch of information. According to avp.fandom, the Yucha, known colloquially as predators or hunters, are an extraterrestrial species characterized by their hunting of other dangerous species for sport and honor, including humans and even xenomorphs. The Yucha are a sentient humanoid race that breathe an atmosphere similar to that of Earth's, but possess a level of technological advancement far in excess of anything available to humans. The predators stalk and kill their prey using a combination of highly advanced technologies such as active camouflage, or like Anthony says, the invisibility cloak, energy weapons combined with comparatively primitive traditional weapons such as blades, spears, and nets. The predators often ritualistically mutilate their prey and usually claim a trophy from their kills, usually the skulls and spinal cords sometimes. Capable of interstellar travel in starships, the predators have hunted on Earth for centuries and have also had prior contact with the engineers from the Prometheus and Alien franchise. Aside from their repeated conflicts with humans, the predators have notably been associated with xenomorph XS121, known to them as Kiandi, aka hard meat, whom they revere as perhaps the most worthy of all prey. They have been known to deliberately breed the creatures from captive queens in order to hunt them, often as part of initiation rituals for young predators. Yucha technology is distinctive in many respects, not least of which is its unusual combination of ornate, tribal appearance, masking deadly, sophisticated weaponry. However, despite the species' obvious technological prowess, including access to adaptive camouflage and plasma weaponry, traditional ancient weapons such as blades, knives, and spears are still employed widely and considered more honorable than advanced technology. That's why they like to use them for kills up close. Yucha culture also centers on ritualistic hunting of other dangerous life forms, and this practice appears to be the foundation of their very society. Predators will travel huge distances, even across entire galaxies, in order to face opponents they consider a worthy challenge. They may also kidnap and transport prey across similar distances to bring such victims to a hunting ground of their choice. That's basically all this predator, why he was dropped off on Earth, was to prove himself and to hunt humans. That's why he's been there, and that's why predators have been doing it there for centuries on Earth. The Yucha have a long and involved history with humans on Earth dating back to ancient times. Evidence suggests that the Yucha influenced the development of early human civilizations, including the ancient Egyptians, the Khmer Empire, the Aztecs, and a largely undocumented culture inhabiting what is now modern-day Antarctica. Upon their arrival in ancient times, the predators were worshipped as gods. I believe they showed this in one of the sequels.
AVP.
Alien vs. Predator. Yeah. Because that takes place in the pyramids.
Yeah.
And they in turn taught these early humans how to construct the pyramids, explaining why so many ancient civilizations share distinctly similar cultures in architecture. These pyramids and temples were often used as hunting grounds by the Yucha. And also, speaking of the character design of the Predator, Jean-Claude Van Damme, we all know, was originally cast as the Predator in this film, was even filming at the time. However, he was fired from the film with the old Predator design and this big suit he was using. It was like
a bug. It looked like a bug more than a villain.
Like a giant bug, dog
like a Power Rangers
alien.
Villain.
It was silly looking, and it was hard to move. And he actually was fired from constant dehydration. He passed out a few times, and this was actually backed up by actor Bill Duke, claiming that Jean-Claude Van Damme was fired from dehydration, despite the production saying at the time that it was other reasons. So this is a quote from Bill Duke. So he had a stealth suit on, and they put him on wires, and they flew up in the trees with the wires on his back like he was flying. He had passed out twice from dehydration, and that's when the producer finally fired him the second time. They redesigned the Predator into something more agile and scarier, and that's when it was cast with Kevin Peter Hall, who's also much taller than Jean-Claude Van Damme, as this new Predator. And speaking of the design of the Predator, legendary designer, what's his name? Stan Winston.
Oh, wow. He
designed the Predator after the studio, while filming, was like, we need to redesign. They offered the job up to a lot of people in the industry. Stan Winston he won the bid to design the new Predator. And he had a final design, he thought, and then he actually bumped into James Cameron, who was obviously doing stuff for Aliens. And he showed the designs to James Cameron, and James Cameron's the one who came up with the idea to give mandibles to an alien, to the Predator. And that's why, because James Cameron's like, I've never seen that with an alien before. Let's do something with mandibles. And Winston took the suggestion and created the mandibles for the Predator. And so they came up with the redesign real quick and made it practical. And because they were going to use visual effects in post-production to enhance the very mediocre design suit that they were using with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, I've seen some sketches of art of the original design of the creature, and it looked more like a giant bug than anything, and it wouldn't have worked. It definitely would not have looked right, especially the way it moved. So I think having and it wasn't humanoid really; it was more insect-like. And so having a creature that was more humanoid and having a star performer, also Jean-Claude Van Damme also thought he would be there was a confusion because of the language barrier with him at the time. He didn't speak great English. He thought he was going to be on camera the whole time and
out of a suit.
Yeah, out of the suit, and would be able to showcase his martial arts abilities. But they really just hired him just to do the cloaking device sequences. And so he was very confused about what his job was on the set, and I don't think anyone there spoke his language. So I think he obviously became very efficient in English and fluent, but I think this is very early in his career. He thought this was going to be his big break, and apparently I read it was very difficult for him. He couldn't really understand what was going on, and so put yourself in his shoes. Like, you're trying to break out in America, and you're in this ridiculous Power Rangers red suit and you look like a giant bug. It was probably hell for him. And also he's also not that tall. I believe he's 5'8", 5'7". And when you have him up against Arnold, I mean, the height difference, Arnold's huge. And so hiring someone who was 7'2", the stunt actor who ended up playing the Predator, much more effective. Plus, he's got like these giant feet, which I'm sure gave him a little bit more of an incline. And so when he's standing next to Arnold or Carl Weathers, it looks like a much more imposing foe, as well as using the camera tricks to show the real size of the Predator, it looks like the Predator is about 8 feet tall, maybe.
On average, they're about 7, some are 8 feet tall.
And the suit actually was so heavy, even though the stunt performer was a large guy being over 7 feet tall, the suit of the Predator weighed 200 pounds in total. And so he was unable to stand and walk around in the suit on his own. So what the crew did to make up for that was they tied him to some wires to help him move. So the wiring tied to his suit helped alleviate a lot of the weight. So every sequence of the Predator moving around, walking, he's actually strapped to wires above him to give him the ability to be able to withstand all that weight. So the suit looks amazing. It was probably very difficult to work with. So kudos to that stunt actor for doing a terrific job of performing as the Predator. Really terrific.
Now, speaking of the bright red suit, someone might be confused, like, why was he wearing a red suit? So the invisibility cloaking, which is one of the great functions of the Predator's technology, they actually did this. They were nominated for an Oscar for Best Visual Effects with this movie. The invisibility cloaking effect was achieved with a bright red suit because it was the farthest opposite of the green jungle in the blue of the sky. And it was the entire size of the Predator. The red was removed with chroma key techniques, leaving an empty area. The take was then replaced without the actors using 30% of the wire lens on the camera. So that was how they did the invisibility cloak sequencing. And then also another...
And that's why generally green screens are used, because green is a color that's less often used on a set. Sometimes blue screens are used, especially for outdoors. If there's going to be grass or trees or bushes, you want whatever you're going to eliminate in post-production has to be a color that's not already in the shot. So, like you said, red, because there's no actual red in these shots.
Oh, yeah, and let me continue with, so they take the shot with the guy in the red suit who was Jean-Claude Van Damme. I mean, the actor at the time, so with even the new redesign. So he's wearing the big red pink suit, and then they do another take of filming, and then without anyone in the shot, and then they combine them optically, the jungle from the second take filled in the empty area, and they're able to create that vague outline of the alien with the effects in post-production. Now, another great technology that the Predator uses for hunting is the thermal infrared sensor vision, so that he can pick up on heat signatures in the area. So this is possible from heat and light are both parts of the electromagnetic spectrum, but a camera that can detect visible light won't see thermal energy and vice versa. So for the thermal vision, infrared film could not be used because it did not register in the range of the body temperature wavelengths. The filmmakers used an inframetrics thermal video scanner because it gave good heat images of objects and peoples, especially from a distance. The glowing blood was achieved by green liquid from glow sticks mixed with personal lubricant for texture. So you probably don't want to get
glowing.
Yeah, you don't want to get that on your fingers.
Yeah,
that's pretty toxic. The 1980s and 90s, man. They're like, if it's toxic, whatever.
Oh my god.
Then like some of those toys from the 90s for sure. Electric sparks were rotoscoped animation using white paper pins registered. The electrical sparks were rotoscoped animation using white paper pins registered on portable light tables to black and white prints of the frames.
That means that they filmed that separately and then they put it on top of the film of the movie, and that inserts it. That's how they did Star Wars lightsabers.
Yeah, and then additional visual effects, mainly for the opening title sequence of the Predator arriving to Earth, which is so cool. It's kind of like The Thing.
Yeah.
Were supplied by Dream Quest Images, who later won Oscars for their work on The Abyss and Total Recall.
Yeah, and the visual effects, I mean, it obviously looks hammy compared to now, but if you watch it, we watched it in the 90s and it looks so real. And also something that might throw viewers off, if you haven't seen this before, what might throw you off is the lighting. Sometimes the lighting can be a little too bright, especially during some of the night sequences. But keep in mind, like, they're using film cameras. They didn't have the sophisticated lighting techniques that many crews have now, even if they're shooting on film. Also, they're shooting in dense jungle. They probably were very limited with what they could do. So at some point, they're like, this area is so dark, we just need to throw a light on there. They're shooting fast. So bear in mind that the lighting can be a little off sometimes, but that's just like filmmaking back in the 80s, especially on a low budget. and also not using digital cameras, using film cameras. A lot harder to work with, especially in an environment like this. But I think they did a fantastic job lighting this movie. The cinematography is really fantastic. I love some of the shots that we get of empty jungle. McTiernan did a terrific job of always like transition shots. He would start like on the open jungle of the tree line, and then he'll pan the camera over to characters, just implying that the predator could be anywhere. And
it's kind of like Alien.
He did a terrific job of showcasing the environment and creating a lot of paranoia for the audience.
It's like Alien when Ripley's in the hallways and like the alien could be anywhere. It's like camouflage. So like you can see a ton of influence from Alien on this project, and it's actually cool that they combined for a franchise, because there have been now 5 solo Predator movies since the conception of the character and the script. It was formerly owned by 20th Century Fox. That's who also owned Alien at the time. That's why they're able to combine the universes together. Yeah. So the 5 solo Predator movies are Predator, Predator 2, Predators, The Predator, and Prey, and also Alien vs. Predator and Alien vs. Predator Requiem. And
Origins.
And even though this is coming out on Hulu, 20th Century property is now owned by Disney, because Disney now owns 20th Century Fox, and 20th Century Fox had a huge stake in Hulu. So actually, Hulu is mostly owned by Disney, even though Comcast, I believe, owns 33% of Hulu. Disney owns their respective percentage, as well as the controlling interests and operating control of the entire company.
I'm sure Comcast wants to buy them out.
Like, you think Hulu's a separate thing, but Disney's like secretly owns everything.
They're on the umbrella. They own everything. You can see the Hulu logo on Disney Plus sometimes.
So hopefully they keep making Predator movies and Alien movies that are hard R or hard PG-13s, because they need to be that.
Yeah, I think so, because we were actually talking about this the other day, how Deadpool and Logan and Deadpool 2 are being added onto Disney Plus if they haven't already. I think they are, and it's hard R's. And since Disney owns Fox, Fox has a large library of films and TV shows, and they have a lot of great rated R movies, and they're not going to put those on Disney Plus. So even though Disney owns them, I don't see the vast majority of these movies being on Disney Plus. They're instead going to license these movies to other streaming sites and also put them on Hulu. So they'll let Netflix buy license a movie for a couple of years, or they'll let HBO Max, Paramount Plus license movies for years or so. So I don't see movies like this, many of Fox's R-rated movies, ever ending up on Disney Plus.
Let's talk some more about the design of the Predator and some of his equipment, because like you were talking about earlier, when he takes the mask off, it is like, what the hell is that? He's got like 4 pincers for his mouth and creepy eyes and different language, and he's kind of got like reptilian skin, and they're huge and long claws, just incredibly strong, fast, great climbers, and just...
I would say not reptilian, amphibian skin.
Okay, maybe
like a frog's type skin, not like a lizard.
Yes, but I love the equipment, specifically the biohelmet, biomask, whichever you want to call it, as well as performing the basic functions of protecting the predator's head. The helmet also grants the wearer access to multiple vision modes, including zoom capabilities, thermal infrared vision, facilitates vocal mimicry, and includes breathing apparatus, diagnostics, and visual and audio recording systems, including the video recorder and voice recorder. Another feature of the Predator's helmet is that voice translator and recorder. He can both record and play strips of audio, which the Predator may use to catch a prey off guard, to tease them, like he does with, I think it's Billy.
He does it a couple of times,
and then also he can study the language and even get translations sometimes. I also love the wrist blades, which are the
gauntlet
one
blade,
of the most iconic weapons in film history for action and sci-fi. The wrist blades, known as the gauntlet knives, are the most basic of Yucha weapons and arguably the species' signature armament. And again, it's more honorable to use these to kill prey. That's why he likes to use it. He uses it against...
Yeah, it's like an extension of its fist.
Yeah, he uses it multiple times in the film, obviously. The wrist gauntlet is really interesting as well, also known as a wrist bracer or wrist computer, is a wrist-worn Yucha technology. It houses several technologically advanced features, including a SATCOM and a powerful self-destruct device, as well as controls for a predator's cloak, the invisibility cloak, and in some cases, their plasma casters. Some wrist gauntlets also included energy flechettes or power punch gloves. The Medicamp, also known as Medikit, is a powerful and versatile first aid kit used by the Yucha to treat wounds while on a hunt. He uses it in the film, obviously. The flaying tool is a Y-shaped prong that is meant to be grabbed at the bottom and emits a laser form between the two prongs to essentially help skin their victims and peel skin off already flayed trophies, like with the smoke and everything that he does to make these perfectly clean skulls as trophies.
Probably my favorite aspect about the Predator, well, first of all, I love the dreads too. The dreads are great, but I love how the Predator It's not wearing a suit. It's wearing, garb and here and there. It's covering
Fishnets.
Fishnets. But it's not wearing a suit. And it really feels like it's like this. It's a futuristic being. Well, not futuristic, but it's a highly intelligent being with incredible technology, and yet it's stripped down, and it's more like it's like a caveman hunter than it is a alien. And I like that aspect where it's like it's exposed. It's not covered in armor. It shows its respect for the things it's hunting, because like it doesn't try to take too many unfair advantages. And I like how
Even though it has a plasma pistol.
plasma pistol. Well, they have guns.
Yeah.
So that's fair. But when he's fighting Dutch, he takes off the cannon. You know what I mean? But I really like how it's like he's like an alien caveman. If you look at the outfit, it's very like he's very vulnerable. And I like that aspect rather than just being like heavy duty, armored up, like just covered in a suit. I like the exposed aspect of the entire wardrobe.
Yeah, it makes them vulnerable, like you said, for their most dangerous game. It makes it somewhat more of a fair fight.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how about we head on into our intermission before we get more into Predator?
Let's do it.
Let's begin the intermission and start with the movie quote competition. I have two. So one's from Anthony DeMeo and the other's from me.
DeMeo!
This is from Anthony, who is making us an amazing sign, which will be here soon.
He's the man.
For the wall. Now, a tribe of asparagus children. They're self-conscious of how their pee smells.
Say it again.
A tribe of asparagus children. They're self-conscious of how their pee smells.
Elf.
Yes.
Nice.
And then
it's when they're pitching kids' books.
Yeah.
Andy Richter. Yeah.
No, not Richter. Is it Richter? Or
who else is in that scene with him?
No, the guy from Conan. Is that him? Andy.
Guy from who?
Conan.
Yeah. Oh, Andy. Yeah, Andy Richter. That's his name.
That's his last name? Oh, I thought it was something else.
Oh, yeah.
Never
That's
mind.
his name.
All right.
I believe.
This one's for me. Someone's going to fact check us. You're a funny guy, Sully. I like you. That's why I'm going to kill you last.
Commando.
Yes, sir.
I thought you said you were gonna kill me last. I lied. I love that movie. All right, here's my quote. A good death is its own reward.
Oh my God. Why am I blanking on this?
A good death is its own reward.
Yeah, I know it. Fuck. Shit. A good death is its... Oh my gosh. It's...
You got it.
It's a female character. Oh my God.
What is it?
I am blanking.
What's the movie?
Holy crap. This is a movie I really love too. I know it.
Oh yeah, you love it. You're gonna be really mad if you get it wrong.
I got it.
Yeah.
Feora in Man of Steel.
Correct.
Oh man,
There you go. I thought it was gonna be a softball for you.
Me too, man. Woo. Sometimes you just have those brain farts, you know?
Yeah.
All right, guess this movie release here. Conan the Barbarian.
I'm gonna go with 1981.
82.
Ah, darn it.
So close, man.
Guess this movie release year. Boys in the Hood.
Sipping gin and juice. 19. Let's see. How young? Cuba is so young in this movie.
So is Lawrence Fishburne. I did a Lawrence Fishburne themed.
I'm going to go 19. I feel like... I'm feeling like it's late 80s, but also early 90s. Crap. I'm going to go 1989.
91.
91.
Close.
Close. Movie pop quiz time. What was Arnold Schwarzenegger's first movie?
Oh, I know this. He's helping a guy lose weight or get in shape. I don't know the name of it.
It's actually Hercules in New York.
Oh, Hercules in New York.
It's his first like acting credit of all time.
Oh, wow.
And it was like the first thing he did when he moved to America
Mhm.
in terms of acting roles. And it's you can find clips of it on YouTube. It's pretty funny.
I gotta see this.
It's like very low budget. Very,
I can imagine, yeah.
Very independent, but yeah. It's a movie technically.
Guess this pop quiz question. What Tom Cruise movie did Lawrence Fishburne star in?
Tom Cruise, Lawrence Fishburne. What were they in together? I don't think it's something this century. Let's see.
It's a good question. It's a good question.
That is solid. Lawrence Fishburne, Tom Cruise in the same movie. Lawrence Fishburne's the star of it?
Stars in it. He's not. Tom Cruise is the star. But he's a major part of the cast.
I don't know.
Mission Impossible 3.
Oh my gosh, works for...
He's an ally of Ethan Hunt. Yeah, helps him get out. Yep. Gotcha.
Gotcha. All right. Who we got for haters or unsubscribes this week? We got anyone? Anyone
we
interesting?
Got some. In our Dragon Tattoo clip, Stephen Haig wrote, "By the way, love the podcast, but it's not Daniel Craig. It's pronounced Daniel Craig. The I is silent in Craig. Unsubscribed." And then in our movie awards episode, Dr. Batman wrote, "Secrets of Dumbledore was actually the 11th Wizarding World movie, not the 9th. Seriously, do you guys even research, bro? Unsubscribe."
Research. We have a great 5-star review. This is from Keenan Scott.
Oh, Keenan.
Best podcast out. Truly one of the best podcasts around and my go-to destination for film content. There's nobody I rely on heavier for movie news and analysis than James and Anthony. I'm proud to say I've been a huge fan since their first TikTok video in early 2020.
Wow.
Holy crap.
Wow.
I don't remember what the first one was.
I can't remember. I don't know.
Maybe was it like Harrison Ford or something?
Maybe.
Their greatest strength is that they cover all the best films. Their appreciation for greats like Scorsese, Nolan, and Fincher is music to my ears. They have a truly extensive knowledge of film, yet their opinions are not pretentious or dated. Where they really shine is the longer episodes where they have time to delve into the details of a film. You can tell they really do their homework. I can't say enough about these guys. I get excited when they put out new content. Love you guys. Love you too, Keenan.
Thanks, Keenan. That's really nice.
That's really sweet.
That's great.
This is a fun one too, this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Going really deep analysis here.
Yeah, we love Predator. We also have a Godfather shout-out today.
Who is it?
Today's Godfather shout-out is Luke Eccleston. Luke has been a big fan of the show and supporter of us for a while.
My daughter's wedding, you became
Luke, we made you an offer you couldn't refuse.
Luke's awesome.
Yeah, we love you. He's always interacting with us, and he's been a supporter of the show on our Patreon for a while now. And Luke picked Back to the Future for his bonus episode.
Heck yeah.
It'll be a lot of fun. Can't wait to do that one.
I always love revisiting that. We actually have an out-of-time license plate.
Over here.
Where? Over behind you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I stole it.
On the wall. You stole it from
You got Jurassic Park, so I took Back to the Future.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Now, again, thanks, Luke, for your support. On this day in film history, today is August 4th. Not a lot going on, but we have in 2000, Coyote Ugly was released. In 2005, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia premiered. In 2006, Talladega Nights came out. If you ain't first, you're last. 2017,
Shake and bake.
Wet Hot American Summer, 10 years later, was released. And happy birthday to Billy Bob Thornton and Daniel Day Kim. Now, my streaming recommendation for this episode is Flight, which just got added to Netflix this August.
Great movie.
Thanks, man.
Zemeckis. Our episode is also sponsored by our great friends at movieposters.com. Use our special coupon code at their website, Raiders10, to get 10% off your order today. Movieposters.com has a gigantic selection of pretty much every movie and TV show imaginable in their arsenal of posters. They also have all sorts of framing, backlighting, and all sorts of poster sizes for your needs. They got you covered. Our set is decked out with a bunch of these amazing posters. We love them. We know you love them too. So again, for all of your poster needs, head on over to movieposters.com and use our promo code Raiders10 to get 10% off your order today.
Now let's get back into our discussion on Predator.
Something that I just really love about this movie and just the 80s, 90s action movies is just the muscles, the biceps. Like, it's there's so much, and like the costumes in this movie make no sense in terms of like actual commandos and special ops officers. Like Arnold, the only sleeves Arnold wears are in the polo shirt he wears in the opening, and that's it. Like, he's just constantly sleeveless. Carl Weathers, like all these guys, just like no sleeves on their arms at all, even though they're in a special ops situation. But that's what people are going to see it for. We want to see these larger than life characters, these impossibly strong men taking on this enemy. And that's part of the appeal of the film and this kind of movie. Obviously, like you said early in the episode, it's not for everyone, but I love it. Like Carl Weathers and Schwarzenegger just doing that arm wrestling match is just like so amazing and legendary. I love this stuff. And Stallone with the same stuff with all of his great movies like Rambo, especially First Blow, Part 2 when you're like all cut up.
Got any tips?
Got any tips? Tropic Thunder for y'all. But I love these kinds of movies. And it's what we grew up on, and it's just fun to see. It doesn't have to be in every movie, but I do miss the days of this.
Yeah, Arnold didn't become a world-famous actor because of his acting chops. Still pretty good, but Carl Weathers is the best performer in this movie.
He's
that
a great
guy
actor.
is such a great actor.
Yeah.
And he has probably the most dialogue of anybody in this movie, I would say. Carl Weathers is all over this film.
Yeah, he's got a ton to say, and he's just a terrific performer in the movie.
But yeah, the outfits make no sense. Like maybe Mac is the only one whose outfit makes sense, and like Poncho and some of them because they're actually wearing sleeves and shirts. And because you're in the jungle, of course it's hot as hell, but like you got to be worried about mosquitoes, insects, getting scratched by stuff all the time, and abrasions.
Poisonous plants.
Poison ivy. Like, who knows what's all over the place?
Yeah.
So, like, Carl Weathers wearing a vest that's unbuttoned makes no sense. But it's great. And, these guys put so much work into their bodies, and that's, like Anthony said, was part of the appeal of seeing these movies.
Superheroes.
They are.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Carl Weathers was even on record in an interview saying that he actually made it seem like his body was like natural physique. So he would get up at 3 a.m. before filming to hit the gym real hard. And he wouldn't work out with everybody else because he wanted to make it seem like he's just like a different level of being like a natural physique. So like he was kind of messing with the crew and the rest of the cast. Whereas like Arnold and them, they were all getting up early and they were all like had this competition of like macho, I got the biggest arms. And even Jesse Ventura, after he was...
Who was a wrestler.
Yeah, he's a world famous, huge wrestler in the United States at the time, and actually became governor of what state? I can't remember.
Nevada.
Like Nevada or North Dakota or something. Some random state. He became the governor of in the United States.
It's not some random state. It's a great state, whatever it was.
And so when he was doing his fittings with the costume department, he found out that his arms were just as big, if not maybe a little bigger than Arnold Schwarzenegger's. So that's why he went up to Arnold one day on set. He's like, yeah, I heard I have bigger muscles than you. Little did he know that Arnold told the costume department to let him think this so that he could like create like the rivalry between them. And so then Arnold's like, oh, you want to measure arms? And then he measured arms with Arnold. Was way short because Arnold's biceps are massive, even though Arnold lost a ton. He lost 25 pounds to be in this movie, and he was this big. That's how enormous Arnold Schwarzenegger was in his prime. He was obviously even bigger when he was Mr. Olympia so many times, but he was huge outside of Predator as well. So he lost 25 pounds of muscle, and he's still this enormous.
Yeah, maybe not everyone understands how big he was. Like when he was Conan, he was still very big, but when he was Mr. Olympia, he was just so massive. But to be able to act in movies, he had to cut a lot of that weight because he was just so gigantic. For two things, it probably would have been difficult to keep that muscle building and that muscle while you're filming 12 hours a day. And also, it probably would have just seemed a little out of place, him being so gigantic compared to other actors. So I think it was smart for him to cut a lot of weight, and just because if actors who keep on that much weight, like Hemsworth, while he was filming Thor: Love and Thunder, he had to eat like 12 times a day. And it's hard just to keep that muscle on. And Hemsworth is still smaller than Arnold was. So Arnold was just like on a different level than anyone else in terms of acting.
Well, and then The Rock right now, Dwayne Johnson, we all know he travels with his Iron Paradise, which is his mobile gym that he has an entire crew builds before at every production he's working on so that he can work out for like 2-3 hours before filming begins. So that's what it takes for somebody like The Rock to stay that big as well. And you could probably say that The Rock is like the modern day embodiment of what Arnold Schwarzenegger was in terms of like being the biggest, strongest action star out there.
Oh, absolutely. And if you remember in The Rundown, The Rock's one of his big leading roles, he did Walking Tall and The Rundown.
Sean William Scott too.
Yeah,
Stifler.
Sean William Scott. Yeah, and Rosario Dawson's on it as well. I remember I really liked it. Christopher Walken's the villain. But in The Rundown, Arnold Schwarzenegger makes a little cameo. And because he had a lot of respect for The Rock, and he was like basically like passing the mantle in that movie of like, you're the next big, gigantic, huge, jacked action movie star, and I give you my blessing. So if you look, Schwarzenegger has like a 30-second cameo in that movie for that reason.
It's really cool. But aside from the muscles and stuff, this is still a really great script. It's a really great original idea. Like we said, it's the most dangerous game, basically, except with a massive, highly advanced alien versus humans with huge muscles, which is so cool and so fun. And again, I just want to bring up the music again because Alan Silvestri, who you all know modern day has like done the themes and the music for the Avengers films and still is working today in a lot of projects, but like he did the music for this film. And one of my favorite pieces of sound design combined with the music that goes on in The Predator is when we're switching constantly back and forth from the jungle of the characters to the Predator vision. Jungle of the characters, Predator vision. Predator vision's really cool. We have the sound design of like his internal mechanics and maybe the software he's got in his ears, so we kind of can hear what the Predator is hearing with like the echoey voices that he's hearing through his mask and the bio mask. And then we cut to back and forth to the great bombastic score of Alan Silvestri. And there's a couple of great scenes where he's tracking the humans and it goes Predator sound effects to bombastic score, sound effects, bombastic score, whatever is being on screen. It's really fun and it's got a great rhythm and pacing to it.
The sound design is really terrific, especially the Predator's voice. And the voice actor who voiced the Predator, he actually came up with a lot of the Predator's sounds in terms of like it's like this gurgling and like this clicking sound. So Peter Cullen, he's a famous voice actor. He's most famous for voicing Optimus Prime in all the Transformers. But he came up with a lot of the sound effects for what the Predator would sound like because the crew they didn't really have an idea of what this being would sound like to human ears. And so I love the sounds that like these clickings and gurgling sounds that the Predator makes for its language. I also really like how it can speak English, but it's also, you got to remember the thing's an animal. So the way it hears is different from humans and the way it sees is different from humans. When he takes his mask off, all he sees is red with like highs and lows of shadow. And also when he takes his mask off, sound is a higher pitch. It's got this like squeaky, like if you sped up my voice, it would be higher pitched. Like that's what sounds sound like to him. And then the mask basically like controls everything from visual and auditory perspective and enhances it to improve his vision and improve his hearing. So I like how they approach it of like it's an animal, just like other animals here on Earth. Cats and dogs have different kinds of vision. Horses have different kinds of vision from human beings, and also they hear things differently. So I like how they approached it of an aspect of like this isn't just like an alien. It's like an alien, an animal, and it would have different auditory and visual stimulations than a human being does. So I like the approach they have with that, and also what I really love about the Predator is there's no explanation, there's no backstory. Nobody like figures out what it's here for. Oh, it's here to hunt. It's from this place. And they did that in the other movies. And sometimes, I mean, it doesn't really work. And I like having the mystery. There's no need to explain what this thing is, where it came from, what its goal is. All we know is that it's hunting people. And that's all we need to know. And that really makes it better.
And outside of the Predator tracking and killing the humans, which is basically a subplot up until the second, third act of the film, it's a solid action flick. And up until then, it's a solid like rescue mission. So his team, Dutch's team, he specifically points out to
Dylan.
Why do I keep forgetting Dylan's name? I don't know why I can't remember it. He keeps pointing out to Dylan that we're not hitmen, we're not assassins, we're a rescue team, even though we find out that Dylan basically lied to Dutch in order to get his team in there to stop the smugglers, which he used the hostages as a ploy to get Dutch to sign on, saying that it's a rescue mission when really he's just cleaning up Dylan's dirty work. Yeah. And like Dylan's just all he wanted was the intel and to stop these smugglers from getting their weaponry wherever they were going across the border. And so we got great portrayal going on there. We have conflicting interests between the CIA and other forms of government.
Yeah, the soldiers have no respect for him after they keep calling him Agent Man.
Yeah, but I like how we have an understanding that these guys, they're not killers of just to be assassins. They're rescue teams. So I really like the aspect of it, so we get behind them and their actions as well. You know, Dutch versus Dylan's rivalry is really great. We understand that they have respect for each other in the first part of the film. They've probably worked together in special ops. They both have that lighter from whatever mission they were on. But now Dutch has lost complete respect for Dylan when he finds out that he just lied to them, he betrayed them. And then we find out through little nuggets throughout the film from the character's perspective that there's something else going on. These bodies that we found are skinned alive, and these were Green Berets, some of the greatest soldiers on the planet Earth. ever. And they couldn't even stand up to what they think were just the 12 guerrillas. Billy's tracking the guerrillas, but he's also finding other army boots, which we find out were the Green Berets and other teams that were sent in that were killed by something. And then they're finally realizing that there's something else in the woods besides the guerrillas, because even though after they attack the guerrillas and save one of the hostages, and which is just a crazy action sequence.
Oh my God.
Arnold lifting up the truck and sending it on its way. It's great. Great action.
There are so many grenades launched in that action sequence. It's just like everyone has a grenade launcher, like
so many bullets sprayed in this film. So many dudes jumping and falling in slow motion.
It's all the action. I love the all stunt work, like the real stunt work, and seeing like there's an explosion happening with stuntmen right there, and they're so like they're jumping off from an explosion. Like it's crazy.
There's a great shot of Dutch when he's behind a tree. He shoots the grenade launcher at one of those things. There's an actual explosion, literally 100 feet behind Arnold. He gets covered behind the tree. It's incredible practical filmmaking.
No CGI. I love it. And it can be, it's not like, it can be a little cheesy a couple times, but that's the fun. And then we get the one-liners, like stick around and what does he say when he opens the door? He kicks the door open. He just shoots the two guys.
I can't remember.
A great line. Knock, knock.
But yeah, speaking of stunt work, just the opening sequence of them getting there in the helicopter sequence, then you're watching these stunt men. They're really going down ropes from these helicopters. It's all real. It's happening. There's no green screen. It's not an LCD screen behind them. And we just have great filming and great cinematography of these great action sequences and just awesome stunt work. It's excellent.
And it establishes how talented this crew is, how great this team is, because they take out an entire camp of enemies and only one of them gets hit by like a stray bullet. That's how Dylan's right, where they're the best of the best. They're the only ones who could pull this off. And that's why even when they come across the Predator taking them out is even more impressive for the Predator.
For real. And it just slowly reveals the mystery of the Predator until, the first person to get killed is Hawkins, and his body is just...
Oh, my God.
Disappears, except for his intestines are found. What happened to him? The jungle came and took him away and disappeared, which is crazy. And then we have the next kill is Blaine, who gets shot by the laser beams. And then we have that crazy shootout in the woods where like maybe 10,000 bullets are sprayed.
They just spray the woods
with the minigun. Yeah. These guns are so enormous and unnecessarily big, but it's great. And I love how the Predator... He's a trophy-seeking predator hunter, and he comes back for the bodies because he's doing it for trophies. And what's the woman calls it, the demon who makes trophies of men, because it's been there for so long, and her culture knows of this demon in the jungle that makes trophies of men.
I love like this myth of it, and it's just probably like this scary story that's passed down from generation to generation of this monster, which is we find out is an alien. Different aliens coming to hunt human beings. I love how that really establishes the Predator. It's not its first time here, and it's not the first Predator that's been here, which is terrific.
And I love like the Boy Scout booby trapping scenes where they try it first with their technology, with their tripwires and claymores, but the Predator is able to see those with its vision, with its biomask, and it slips through undetected while the hog comes in through them, making up a show with the fireworks and explosions and everything. But he steals the body under their noses, and then they do it with just forest, with woods, with vines, with ropes, so that it's concealed a lot better.
Which works because Arnold was about to get stabbed through the back until it was tripped by that wire.
Yeah, using himself as bait. And then obviously the Predator gets away, but then the final act, the third act between the Predator and Arnold, with another booby trapping scheme, which ends up working in his favor. Obviously, when he's on the run from the Predator, trying to draw it away from everybody else, and he falls into the river down the waterfall. He goes inside the mud clay, which he realizes later on, this is hiding my body heat from the Predator. It can't see me. He doesn't realize it's body heat, but for some reason the Predator can't see him when he's covered in it.
I think he realizes it's heat because that's when he sets the fire as a distraction in that final step piece. But I remember clearly being a kid and watching this movie so many times and always just being so struck by the mud sequence when Arnold, he's like, escaped death and fell down these waterfalls. The stunt actor who did that sequence is like, wow. He actually like broke his knee doing one of those falls into the water.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did he hit it off like a rock in there or something?
I think maybe the impact of just the water was so hard, but that guy really did that. And we watched this yesterday, and the waterfall sequence, I was like, oh my God, that guy's crazy. It's unbelievable.
Crazy.
It's unbelievable. It's a great shot. And then when Arnold swims and he crawls out of the water and just sticks his head in the mud, he's like, I made it out alive. And then the predator just like splashes in the water, invisible behind him, and he's like, oh fuck, I gotta get out of here. And he crawls, and there's really nowhere to go. And then he hides in the trees. And an image that was so strongly imprinted in my mind as a kid of like, this is one of my favorite scenes of the predator. First the predator is revealed, and then it fails to see Arnold, and Arnold's just like stuck there amongst the vines and roots of this tree covered in clay. It's a really terrific image. And then the predator just walking away, not seeing him. It was an extremely frightening moment the first time I saw it. It elicits great fear in that moment, and also reveals so much about the predator to Arnold, to Dutch, which helps inform him in the upcoming battle. I just really love that sequence.
And all the kills are so unique and interesting. Like, obviously, who is it? Poncho who gets killed when he's watching the girl.
Yeah.
And then also Dylan and Mac's death is really great because they think that they got the predator cornered. They can see it in the trees, and they're going to sneak up on
in those trees.
Have me some fun. I'm gonna have me some fun. I'm gonna have me some fun. And then he gets the laser pointer when he's trying to sneak up on him and blasted through the head. And then Dylan gets taken out where his arm gets shot off, and then he tries to use the other gun. He's got two MP5s in his hands. He's not fast enough, and the predator gets him with his wrist blade. So we're seeing different uses of his technology for the different deaths.
Watching
really interesting.
Watching Dylan get lifted up, but he's just screaming with blood oozing out of his mouth, and then we cut to the crew escaping, and then they turn back because they hear Dylan's cries echoing across the jungle. Like, what a moment!
And Billy's death is one of my favorite deaths too, because Billy's a warrior. He's one with nature. He's a great tracker. He's an indigenous American, and so that's like such a great character. And then he knows they're all gonna die. It's like there's something out there, and it's not a man. Something waiting for us out there. It's not a man, and we're all gonna die. He knows he's gonna die, and he's gonna die on his terms. He's gonna die without fear, facing whatever this is, mano a mano, 1-on-1. He cuts his chest to reveal to the prey that's hunting. I mean, the predator that's hunting him, the hunter that like, I'm not prey. Come after me. Let's go. I'm not afraid of you. And then we don't see his death. We just hear him scream, which is so much more effective than if we cut to him getting like the wrist blade through the chest or something.
We don't need to see it.
It's so much better without seeing it. And this is so many modern action films. They really need to, I think, go back to these old ones and just see the patient filmmaking, the slowing it down, and the suspense building. We don't need to see every single thing, every single punch, every single piece of action. Let's take our time and have some quiet suspense. That's what makes it so intriguing and terrifying.
Because when you hear Billy scream, and then it's just the three of them, and they look back, and it's like, holy crap, it's taking them out so easily, and these are some of the best warriors alive. That is just so frightening. You don't have to see it, like you said. You don't need to show it. Just hearing that scream across the jungle is more than enough. And then this is when it's like the predator's like full on, like, I'm killing you all, and he just shows up, shoots him, and then we get to the chopper, run, no,
get to the chopper.
It's terrific. It's amazing.
Kill me, kill me. What are you waiting for?
But when it becomes Arnold versus the Predator, this is really what makes the movie special. And like, it's the last 30 minutes of this movie. It's one of my favorite third acts. It's really terrific, and it's just like the build up. Both these warriors are preparing. They're licking their wounds, and then the predator is like making its new trophy. Arnold is building a huge set, building booby traps and setting the fire, and he's making bows and arrows, and it's just amazing. And these two warriors preparing for battle, and then when Arnold lights the torch and he just does that like George of the Jungle scream, and then the predator hears it. I love the predator. He hears Arnold screaming. He's like, damn, this guy ain't messing around.
He's not like, man, should I be scared right now?
Maybe I should get out of here.
And the third act, it's so great. He comes up past him invisible, and Dutch doesn't realize. He realizes he's there behind him, and using the trees as to move around, just like the predator, kind of turning the tables on him.
Also, the mud clay, it takes the predator's strength and gives it to Dutch, using the invisibility. It's his own invisibility cloak. So the predator is finally on level playing field with someone.
Almost. And then, it's what proves Dutch's prowess and allows him to defeat the predator is his intelligence, and being as equal, is not obviously as strong or as powerful as the predator, but using his mind and tricking the predator multiple times, even though He loses the effectiveness in the defense of the clay when
he falls into the water. I was like, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, even still when I watched this, when I watched yesterday, he fell into the water. I was like, oh no, he's going to lose the mud.
And then the wrist blades come on either side of his head. And it's great that the Predator, like you said, shows him respect by fighting him mano-a-mano without weapons or anything. But then Dutch's great strength was, again, planning for something like this. He knows that he was going to lead the Predator into this tunnel, and he knows the Predator is not an idiot. He had the first plan of the spikes on the wood, which was just there to, you could tell, as second form of bait to have him go on the other side.
And before this, the Predator actually did it to him first, led Arnold into the tunnel with its blood trail into that first tunnel. So the Predator did this first.
And so he knew that he's so clever. He's like, obviously he's smart. He's intelligent. He's going to think this is a trap. So have him go on the other side where I have the real trap set for him with the giant tree trunk that I have above his head, taking him out, and it's great.
It's amazing. When it lands on the Predator, I always jump with excitement, like, yeah, you got him.
And the thing about the Predator is they're such great hunters, but one thing about them is they do not like to lose. Predators hate being killed, and if they get an opportunity where they're about to die, they will take you out with them every time with the giant nuclear explosion. Mimicking Billy's laugh.
Yeah, it's terrific. I love the ending and the ticking clock, and it just takes a moment for it to. We don't understand the symbols on the computer, obviously, but once the first screen goes black, and then McTiernan pans to the next screen, and then we realize it's a countdown, and Dutch is like, "Oh crap, he's gonna get out of here." It's amazing. It's really great filmmaking.
Great hero shot where he's just by himself, covered in dust, dirt, and blood, by himself in this nuclear wasteland in the jungle, smoke everywhere, being picked up by the helicopter. It's incredible. It's an incredible ending. Really, just a perfect action movie. One of the best sci-fi horror action movies of all time. It's up there.
Yeah, and it's Last Man Standing, and Arnold being Arnold. What I love about this movie, too, is it's really Arnold being, like, the most Arnold in, like, the cigars, the style, the hair. It's like,
the tan.
It's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
The sweating.
He just put himself into this movie, which I love. It's terrific, and I've seen this movie a lot, and what really separates it from a lot of other action movies and a lot of sci-fi movies is it's just got such a high rewatch value. It's always entertaining, and I know it front and back. I can quote it. I know everything that's going to happen, but still, like you said, when that third act comes around and it's one versus one, I'm always like, oh, I still have that in the back of my head, like, he's going to die. The Predator's going to get him still to this day. And that's just a testament to how great the film is.
Yeah, and rewatch value is so important to a movie like this. And that's a big problem with a lot of modern-day action films and these sci-fi blockbusters, action movies. They don't have high rewatch value, especially the SVOD originals. I mean,
originals.
Not to name them and name drop them, but we all know what they are. And as soon as you watch it, you're like, I'll never watch that again.
Yeah.
But Predator, I watch this every year.
Yeah.
Legit. We watched it last year. Watched it the year before.
It's a yearly watch.
An iconic movie, and constantly, I'll put it on in 30 years again, and I'll still love it. I'll still hold up.
You'll be showing it to your grandkids. This is a real action movie. Billy, this is a real action movie.
Dad, can we watch Star Wars 17?
Shut up. We're watching Predator 1.
The original. And I hope we haven't seen Prey yet. We have high hopes for it because I like how we're bringing it down to technology, just like the third act of this, where Arnold with bows and arrows, even though he has some gunpowder in some of them. Arnold with bows and arrows, Dutch with bows and arrows and spears and mud, going against the Predator, takes him out. So I like how we're going to the roots of a prequel series, showing what Predators were like, how they've always been here and stuff like that.
The thing with the Predator franchise is it's a franchise that has an all-time great first movie, and then none of its sequels are very good, which is kind of rare for any kind of franchise. Franchise usually has a couple of good movies in them, but for some reason they haven't been able to really capture that magic again. I feel like they've always gone just way too heavy action, way too big in scope and scale, whether it be Predators with, like, there's a ton of Predators and there's a ton of other alien animals on this giant planet, whether it be Predator in New York with number 2, or AVP, Alien vs. Predator, which is a fun concept, but ultimately it's just kind of like, just them punching each other for a while, and it wasn't really that great of a story. And then the recent The Predator, made by Shane Black, I love him. He's a great writer and filmmaker, but it was just a big misstep.
the mecha predator.
Yeah, the giant predator, and also it was just a little too unbelievable. Where like, and it's a great cast too. But Boyd Holbrook is the lead actor, action star, and he's like the special ops leader. He is Dutch in that movie, but like for some reason, the high improbability of his son being a genius and being his son is the one who gets the message from the alien ship and is able to decipher it. The odds of that happening, of it both being the son of the lead actor of this movie, things like that, it was just like so unbelievable and hard to fathom for a lot of times. And the cast is cool, but like it just did not work. But this movie, Prey, it looks cool. They're keeping the scope small. They're keeping the cast small.
Seems like one predator.
Yes,
too.
and yet one predator is the best way to go because one predator is more than enough. Less is more. This is an example of that. And so I hope, it looks like from the trailer, I hope Prey can take that lesson of the failed sequels and really harken back to the original and understand what made the original so great.
Yeah, exactly. Like Jaws, if there were multiple sharks, it's not the same movie. We just saw Nope. If there are multiple aliens, it's not the same movie. Give us just one great villain, one great antagonist, one monster, because that makes that monster so much more moving, so much scarier, so much more impossible to overcome. But when the hero does defeat them, so much that more enjoyable and much better of an experience. And
much better.
It's great.
Dylan.
It means more when there's just one. It's scarier. It's harder to overcome.
Yeah, I just really love this movie. It's one of my favorites. We put it in our 100 movies to see before you die episode.
And when we eventually have to do our 100 favorite movies individually, this is definitely going to be on that for sure. Maybe even top 50 for a favorite movie.
Top 5.
We adore Predator. We're so happy that we finally did an episode on it because we love this franchise, and that's what's so great about the original movie. Like we said, there's been 6 movies involving the Predator, 7 movies now, and some of them are successful. They still make money, but the only reason why they still keep making them, that why I've been able to make video games about it, it's because of the original. The original is so good that they've spawned 6 other mediocre movies. We haven't seen the new one yet, so hopefully that won't be mediocre, but 5 mediocre movies and hopefully a good one. That's because of just one movie was so brilliant, so great, so iconic.
Do you want to move into some fun facts of the movie?
Of course, I did a bunch throughout the episode, but bring up some for you.
All right, so Dutch's line, "Get to the chopper," is Arnold Schwarzenegger's personal favorite catchphrase of all of the films that he's ever done.
Wow, even more than Hasta La Vista.
Yeah.
Or I'll Be Back.
I'll Be Back, yeah. This is his favorite. The distinctive clicking and gurgling sound the Predator makes throughout the movie was thought up by Peter Cullen. And so after the producers approached him to give the Predator a voice, he was taken aback because he had no idea what such a creature was supposed to sound like, not to mention the producers were reluctant to show what the character was finally going to look like. They eventually showed him the design, and Cullen, who thought the Predator resembled a crab, remembered as a kid how he turned one over and the crab would gurgle, and that became the Predator's main sound. So filming the Predator provided a variety of hardships for the actors, such as dealing with leeches, snakes, stifling humidity, heat, and rough terrain. All of the night scenes were filmed during freezing cold temperatures, which was especially hard on Arnold Schwarzenegger during the latter half of the film when the mud he had to wear became cold and wet. The mud that was actually used was actually pottery clay. That's why it didn't rub off so easily. Now the problem with the clay was that it reduced his body temperature down a couple of degrees, which is very dangerous. And filming at night, oftentimes wet, it became very difficult for him, and he was shivering nonstop even when they tried to heat him up with heating lamps during filmmaking. He tried drinking alcohol with Jagger tea and schnapps, but it ended up making him drunk. He ended up fighting through it, obviously, because he's Arnold, and it looks great.
This was actually filmed in the jungles of Palenque, Chiapas, Mexico.
Oh, cool.
And I believe it was filmed also in March and some other parts of the year, so that's why the temperatures drop so low at night.
Gotcha. That's it for my fun facts.
All right, well, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Predator. We love it so much. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to stay tuned for more episodes coming this week and check out previous ones you haven't tuned into. Become a patron at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Stick around. This episode of Raiders of the Lost Podcast has been executive produced through Patreon by our amazing Chosen One patrons, Calvin Cam, Lauren Smertz, Cody Moen, John Agras, Tyler McFly, and Becca Keene. Thank you so much for contributing to our show. Raiders of the Lost podcast is a mirror image production. Sound mixing done by Jacob Kossler. Opening music by Chase Jackson. Thank you for watching Raiders of the Lost podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well, notifications for sure. Listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere you can listen to podcasts, and be sure to check out this other content we have on our YouTube channel.